I'd like to take you back to 1967. Our understanding of weather is in its infancy. The National Weather Service wouldn't exist for a few years yet, instead being called the U.S. Weather Bureau. Using radar to track storms had only begun 10 years earlier, and the technology was still extremely primitive. The Fujita scale for rating tornadoes didn't exist yet. After Dr. Fujita created his scale, tornadoes from earlier years would be rated retroactively based on available records and evidence. And it had only been 15 years since the Weather Bureau even started issuing public tornado warnings. And in late April of 1967, the area around Chicago, one of the largest cities in the U.S., experienced an afternoon of terror they would never forget. This is the story of the 3 F4s that day, which struck the towns of Belvidere, Lake Zurich, and Oak Lawn, the latter crossing over parts of Chicago itself. We can't go into the outbreak without noting the winter beforehand, and the winter of 1966 going into 1967 was record-breaking. On January 26 to 27, 1967, 23 inches of snow fell in Chicago, which is the record for most snow in a 24-hour period in the city to this day. 68.4 inches of snow accumulated throughout the entire winter, which holds today as the second snowiest winter in Chicago history. Snow covered the ground for 42 days straight, from January 26th to March 9th. Finally, by late March, Chicago began to warm up drastically. From April 13th to the 17th, the area saw 5 straight days of high temperatures over 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Near Rockford, it even reached over 80 degrees. Residents around the area were expecting another nice, warm, beautiful spring weekend. It turned out to be anything but. On the morning of April 21st, a low-pressure system formed over the Great Plains and began moving northeast along a stationary front, which was positioned right over northern Illinois. As the low approached Illinois, the stationary front surged north and became a warm front. Temperatures in Illinois climbed into the mid-70s, with dew points in the low 60s. Surface winds shifted slightly to the southeast, increasing the wind shear. The jet stream moved northeast and put northeastern Illinois in the right rear quadrant of the jet, which is typically the region most favorable for thunderstorm development. It was a perfect combination of circumstances which would lead to tragedy that afternoon. At 1:35 p.m., the Weather Bureau issued a tornado watch, which covered most of northern Illinois as well as parts of other states. The watch stated the threat of a few tornadoes possible and would last from 2 to 8 p.m. Around 3 p.m., a line of thunderstorms that had produced wind damage and tornadoes in Missouri and Iowa was entering Illinois. Supercell thunderstorms began firing out ahead of the line, dropping numerous tornadoes, some of them violent. The first violent tornado of the day touched down at around 3:50 p.m., a few miles southeast of the town of Belvidere, near Rockford. The tornado struck a Chrysler plant and destroyed over 400 vehicles, 300 of them brand new from the factory. It then made a direct beeline for the Belvidere High School. Buses at the school, already carrying children from the town's elementary schools, were loading high school students when the tornado struck. 12 buses were thrown or flipped. 13 people were killed at the high school, 10 of them children, and over 300 were injured there alone. When the tornado had moved on, school faculty and some of the older students removed the school's fireproof doors and used them as stretchers to remove the injured and the dead. It stands today as the 6th highest death toll from a school impacted by a tornado. The Belvidere tornado was on the ground for 26 miles, killed 24 people in all, injured around 500, and destroyed 127 homes and a shopping center, where a further 7 people were killed. The next violent tornado would occur about an hour later. It was first spotted around 5 p.m. in Fox River Grove, although some speculate that it may have touched down earlier, as far to the southwest as Elgin. However, the official path starts in Fox River Grove at 5 p.m. It then moved northeast towards Lake Zurich, completely flattening the Lake Zurich Manor subdivision. It leveled 75 homes in this area, killing 1 person. An air conditioning unit weighing 1,000 pounds was thrown half a mile in this area. Witnesses reported never seeing a funnel and even not hearing a sound, only seeing a swirling black mass of clouds low to the ground. Although it has never been explained what caused this unusual silence, I believe this to be an example of an acoustic shadow effect, which is a phenomenon where wind direction and interaction with terrain can carry sound away from nearby areas and cause it to not be heard. One of the most famous examples of this is during the Civil War from the Battle of Iuka, where General Grant could not hear the battle going on despite being less than a mile away. The Lake Zurich tornado was on the ground for just 4 miles, but it still caused F4 damage to the Lake Zurich Manor area, and it injured 100 people and killed 1. The final violent tornado of the event was considered the worst tornado in Chicago's history until the 1990 Plainfield F5. At 5:15 p.m., a Weather Bureau employee observed a funnel cloud over his home 10 miles north of Joliet in what is today Romeoville, but he was unable to get his report through at the time. A restaurant at McCarthy Road and 127th Street in Lamont. Now, McCarthy Road and 127th Street do not intersect, so I don't know if it's an error, or I think that 127th Street may have been what Archer Avenue is today, because there are multiple restaurants at that intersection. But anyways, the restaurant had its windows blown out. Just before 5:24 p.m., the funnel cloud passed over or near the Little Red Schoolhouse near 95th Street and Willow Springs Road. A witness reported ears popping, the building shaking, and cars in the parking lot being shifted as the funnel continued to reach lower to the ground. A barometer at the schoolhouse recorded a pressure drop of about 0.6 inches in a matter of moments. This witness was able to report the funnel to the Weather Bureau. We're here at the Little Red Schoolhouse on Willow Springs Road in, I forget exactly what city it is, but it's between Joliet and Palos Hills. That's the science building over here. You can't really see it off to my left here, but that is the original Little Red Schoolhouse. Anyways, on April 21st, 1967, some people were in the science building, and the funnel cloud that would become the Oakland tornado passed over the building. And the building shook, and cars in the parking lot shifted around, and their ears popped. And a barometer inside the building recorded a pressure drop of 0.6 inches in a matter of moments. Now, officially, the tornado did not touch down until it was on the campus of Moraine Valley Community College, or where Moraine Valley Community College is today. But I believe that the tornado may have indeed been on the ground right when it passed over the Little Red Schoolhouse. But at that point, it was very weak. Even though the tornado was not officially on the ground yet, it is likely that the tornado was already in progress when it passed over the Little Red Schoolhouse. As tornado researcher Skip Talbot discovered in 2018, a tornado does not need to have a visible dust cloud to be on the ground.
The Beardstown storm was between cycles, so I thought this would be a good time to reposition. I got out of the car to get my bearings on the storm structure. I was directly underneath the updraft base, but there wasn't much happening overhead, no rotation, and I was in inflow, so I thought I was in a pretty safe position. But then I noticed the leaves. That might be kind of hard to see here, but watch the motion on these leaves. At first they were being carried toward the storm with strong inflow, but then they started to spiral upwards along with small bits of debris. The wind shifted 180 degrees and I was absolutely blasted by rear plane downdraft.
It's right here. Getting a debris swirl right over us. Looking for more of a substantial debris cloud in the field here.
A few moments later, I spotted this immediately downstream to the northeast. What is that? A ghost? It's a tornado. But a tornado is connected with the storm's base, and we had no rotation aloft even, right? As the vortex continued off to the northeast, here's the base of the storm, now spinning away. This got surveyed as a legit EF0 tornado. There's my position relative to the storm at the time I was hit by the leaf tornado and spotted the debris cloud in the field to the northeast. Look how far away I am from the official start of the tornado track. The Weather Service wasn't finding damage indicators until a mile away from where I was. The processes forming tornadoes begin earlier than we think, sometimes even before there's any visible rotation or funnel cloud aloft.
Moments later, at 5:24 p.m., the tornado would officially touch down right around where the Moraine Valley Community College is today, near the intersection of 107th Street and 88th Avenue in Palos Hills. This was a very rural area in 1967, and only tree damage was observed here.
Alright, it's very windy here because it's in a low-lying prairie. 5:24 p.m., April 21st, 1967, the Oak Lawn tornado touches down in that field just behind me here, just across 107th Street. We're on the campus of what is today Moraine Valley Community College. The college wasn't established until the 70s, I believe, and back in 1967, this is all open fields. Funny thing about Moraine Valley Community College, their mascot is the Cyclones, and I'm not sure if that's just coincidence or if that's because the tornado touched down here.
The tornado would gain an impressive forward speed of over 60 miles per hour and never slow down. It would impact its first buildings on 83rd Avenue, just south of 103rd Street, and already begin to do violent damage. One brick home and 2 frame homes were destroyed here. Further to the northeast, near 78th Avenue and 101st Street, another home was pushed off of its foundation. The tornado would then cross I-294 right where it passes over Harlem Avenue and slam into another subdivision. A well-built home was ripped from its foundation and dropped on its side 60 feet away, otherwise relatively intact. Several other homes were damaged or destroyed in the area.
This is around the spot where the Oak Lawn tornado crossed I-294, and somewhere in this area it picked up a home off of its foundation and dropped it 60 feet away, otherwise intact. There were other homes in this area that suffered F4 damage, but today this isn't very residential at all. There's a lot of businesses around here. A lot of these businesses were not here in 1967. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if none of these businesses were here in 1967. The area has changed a lot in the, almost 60 years since the Oak Lawn tornado.
Just west of Ridgeland Avenue, where the Chicago Ridge Mall is today, the Starlight Drive-In Theater was heavily damaged. The supports for the screen were toppled over, and the speakers were ripped out of the ground and thrown some distance away.
We're here at the Chicago Ridge Mall. In 1967, this was the Starlight Drive-In Theater. This may be a little loud because, again, it's a busy mall, and there is a major road right behind us. That's Ridgeland Road right behind us. And then if you go about half a mile to the northeast, there is the intersection of 95th Street and Southwest Highway. But anyways, this was the location of the Starlight Drive-In Theater. The tornado directly struck the Starlight Drive-In Theater, and it ripped the speakers for the movies out of the ground, and it bent over the steel supports which held up the screen. There is a second Starlight Drive-In Theater location which still survives to this day in Bloomington, Indiana.
The tornado would continue into Oak Lawn, growing to its widest point, about 600 feet wide, and its most intense. Oak Lawn was a fast-growing community as more and more people began to move into the suburbs, and numerous brand-new brick homes would be leveled by the tornado. The tornado then bore down on the busiest area in town, the intersection of 95th Street and Southwest Highway, where up to 40 cars were stopped waiting for the traffic lights. The worst possible scenario was about to unfold. When the tornado blew down the east wall of the high school at the same intersection, the clock was stopped at 5:28 p.m. In just a few moments, 23 people would be dead at one single intersection. 14 were killed in their cars, many of the vehicles being lifted over the high school and dropped onto the football field. 2 people were killed at the bus station, now a Honda dealership, across the street from the high school. 1 was killed in the Sherwood Forest restaurant, another 2 in the Linwood Tavern. The final 4 deaths at the intersection were at the Fairway Supermart, one of them an 18-month-old baby. In addition to the deaths, multiple businesses were completely destroyed.
Alright, we're standing here at the intersection of 95th Street and Southwest Highway. This is where the tornado came through at about 5:28 p.m. on April 21st, 1967. And unfortunately, 23 people were killed at this intersection. 18 of them were in cars, and a few others were at the businesses that are around this intersection. You can see the high school there. In 1967, the wall that's ironically covered now because they're doing construction on it, that was ripped out by the tornado. That is where they had just put in a brand new pool. And right now I'm standing in the parking lot of the Red Lobster, where the Fairway Supermarket and the Sherwood Forest restaurant were in 1967. You can't see it now because they're doing construction, but the parking lot in front of the high school is where the Chutes Linwood Tavern was. And if you come with me, you can see the Exxon gas station here was where the suburban bus depot was in 1967.
The tornado completely leveled several homes in the subdivision immediately northeast of the intersection and heavily damaged St. Gerald Church, which, despite the damage, would later hold memorial services for several people who were killed at the intersection on 95th Street and Southwest Highway. As the tornado was crossing the intersection of 95th Street and Southwest Highway, Elmer Johnson, who was shopping at the Southfield Plaza shopping mall in Bridgeview, snapped this photo of the Oaklawn tornado. He titled it Portrait of a Killer.
We are now at the Southfield Plaza shopping mall in Bridgeview. Just behind me, if you keep going a few miles in that direction, is the intersection of 95th Street and Southwest Highway. Now, at this Southfield shopping center is where one of the most famous photos of the Oaklawn tornado was taken. It was called Portrait of a Killer.
The tornado then approached Cicero Avenue. At the intersection of 95th Street and Cicero Avenue, Robert Cahey, the manager of the Choral Theater, stepped outside with a recording device to capture the sounds of the storm. He never expected there to be a tornado, and he ended up getting caught right inside of it. The following video was made by The Patch, a local newspaper.
3 people standing in front of the theater, and I see it will talk to me on the outside. I'm going to be glad to get out to the start. You mind talking to me? Huh? Well, I'm the manager of the theater here, and I'm taking places. I'm just trying to get reaction. You know, the tornado was hit all around us here.
Oh, yeah?
All around. Yes, all around. We live in Woodstock, Welcome, Burlington, Peking, Lee. I forget what else.
Tornado Orange.
Oh, well, but here we have quite a few people injured. How extensively, nobody knows. You can see how dark it is. Look at how dark it is.
Well, I'm going here my earth now.
I've never seen it so dark. Just look at that. Oh, my. Hey, that looks like a funnel there. Right above the sign. You see it? It is a funnel cloud. This is no joke. Yes, I'll get these people inside. There's definitely a funnel cloud. There's definitely a funnel cloud. I'm going to stand out here and take a chance. I would estimate the thing, hold on just a second. It's approximately on the outskirts of town. From here I can see it very plainly. It doesn't seem to be heading this way. Now it's turning in a twisting pattern. It is turning in a twisting pattern. It is. Oh my God. Oh my. Oh, it's green color. It's green color. It picked up something on the other side of town. It's veering over us now. There's a car here. I just stopped the car. Why don't you pull into my parking lot and wait? I'm going to stop these cars and put them into my lot. Oh my, this is coming down terrible. This is pure black. Boy, the wind. I can't hardly walk against it. I have in the Navy. Oh no. Oh my God. Oh my, I'm right in the middle of it here. I'm not going to go in. No, I can't stand. Oh, you just wouldn't move it on. Oh my God. Oh no. Everything's out of standstill. Oh, the lights. Everything is out. Everything is out now. I'm standing in a corner of the building here. I don't know. Oh. That noise is just as noise as a tornado. It's pitch black. I'm in the middle of the damn thing. I'm in the middle of it. Oh my God. This is just horrible. Everything is being picked up. There's a car. Oh. You just picked up a car and put it on top of another one. The cars are all stopped. I'm in the corner huddled. Easing up just a wee bit. The rain is just driving with such intensity, just a tremendous intensity. I can't see 5 feet ahead of me. I'm soaked. The streets are already flooded. The building is vibrating. There's no light on in town. There's no, oh, now it's hail. There's hail the size of at least grapes. Now this is crazy. Across the street we have this shopping center. All of a sudden out of the clear blue sky a car just fell down right in the middle of 95th Street. I wish I had a camera. This is ridiculous. I've got to get inside. This is not a joke. This is the honest to God truth.
As it crossed Cicero Avenue, the southern edge of the funnel swiped the Oak Lawn roller rink, today a Hyundai dealership. The west wall of the building collapsed inward, killing 3 people, including 2 children. The tornado then impacted the Airways trailer court, causing absolute devastation to the mobile homes. An older couple was killed in the mobile home park.
Alright, so we're on Cicero Avenue, close to the intersection of 91st Street. The Honda dealership that's standing right behind me, I might have an angle well enough. This Hyundai dealership was that's where the Oak Lawn roller rink was in 1967. And the tornado collapsed the back wall of the roller rink, and it fell on 3 people and unfortunately killed them. The McDonald's that's right here received light damage from the tornado. And then if you look down there to the Airways trailer park, but yeah, if you look down that way, that's the Airways trailer park. That was also heavily damaged by the tornado, and a elderly couple was killed in that trailer park.
Just before the tornado impacted the Airways trailer park, Ron Bacon took this famous color photo of the Oak Lawn tornado. The Corvette seen in the foreground is an LA Fitness today. You can clearly see chunks of debris being lofted into the air. The tornado then moved through Hometown, a relatively new community established after World War II. The clocks in Hometown City Hall stopped at 5:29 p.m. Many homes in Hometown were destroyed. Although one person in Hometown would have their death attributed to the tornado, they were not killed directly by the tornado, but died during the cleanup process.
We've now left Oak Lawn and we're making a brief stop at Hometown City Hall. Hometown was a very new town. It was set up in the 1950s to accommodate the growing population of people moving out to the suburbs. The Hometown City Hall was impacted at 5:29 p.m. And just think about it. The tornado hit the Oak Lawn High School at 5:28 p.m. It was moving at over 60 miles per hour. In less than 1 minute, it traveled all the way from the intersection of 95th Street and Southwest Highway to here, the Hometown City Hall.
From here, the tornado would enter parts of Chicago proper, first moving through St. Mary's Cemetery and the adjacent Evergreen Cemetery, toppling over 200 headstones and causing heavy damage to homes east of these cemeteries. The tornado at this point was wavering in strength. The Weather Bureau noted various points where the tornado shrank and would only rip the roofs off of some homes, or even only knock down a few trees, only to suddenly intensify and flatten a few homes before weakening again. The tornado would also occasionally lose its full condensation, but it continued to churn through Chicago neighborhoods. At 5:35 p.m., the tornado entered its final weakening stage as it crossed I-94. It began the debris ejection process and deposited so much debris on the highway that it had to be closed for hours.
We are now in Chicago itself. We're at, this is, you can't really see it here, but just behind me is Interstate 94. This is where the tornado began to weaken, and it would dump all sorts of debris across the highway, and it was closed for hours.
After this point, no further buildings would be demolished, only damaged. A large downburst also appeared to accompany the end of the tornado, as light damage fanned out over a wide area. The tornado passed directly over a water filtration plant on the shore of Lake Michigan at 5:39 p.m., with an anemometer installed at the plant recording a 100-mile-per-hour wind gust, and then the tornado entered Lake Michigan, dissipating shortly after.
Now we're at the end of the tornado's life. It came here to this chemical plant. We're at Rainbow Beach. This chemical plant is right next to Rainbow Beach in Chicago, right along the lakefront. At the chemical plant, there was an anemometer, the thing that reads the wind speed, and it recorded a 100-mile-an-hour wind gust. After that point, the tornado went out over Lake Michigan and eventually dissipated.
In just 15 minutes, the Oak Lawn tornado had traveled just over 16 miles, leaving 33 people dead. All told, the tornado outbreak of April 21st, 1967 saw 45 tornadoes touch down, including 18 in Illinois, resulting in 58 deaths, all of them in Illinois, and nearly 1,500 injuries. The outbreak also racked up over $56 million in 1967, which would be over $500 million today. A late-season winter storm impacted the area 2 days later, dropping nearly 4 inches of snow on Belvidere and breaking record low temperatures across the region, making tornado cleanup and recovery much more difficult. To this day, it remains the latest day in the spring that a snowfall of 3 inches or greater has ever fallen on the Chicago area. The Weather Bureau took some invaluable lessons from the Oak Lawn tornado in particular. Although many people had died, the tornado had been warned by the Weather Bureau long before the Oak Lawn tornado had ever touched down. This is because they had warned for the Lake Zurich tornado at 5 p.m., and back then, warnings were for the entire county regardless of where the storm was. The Weather Bureau noticed that practically everyone who was at home and aware of the warning was in a basement or otherwise sheltering when the Oak Lawn tornado struck. The one problem is that those who were not at home were generally unaware of the warning or even any storms at all, which is why nearly every death in the outbreak was outside the home. This was one of the driving events behind the Weather Bureau deciding to incorporate outdoor warning sirens into its tornado warnings.
Much of the area has changed since 1967. Almost none of the businesses it impacted survive to this day. But even though nearly 60 years have passed since the outbreak, its impact on the community has never been forgotten. At the Belvidere High School, there is a beautiful memorial to the tornado victims. The Oak Lawn Public Library maintains an area of the library dedicated entirely to the tornado, and a small memorial plaque sits outside the adjacent community center. The Oak Lawn tornado was the last violent tornado to ever impact within the city limits of Chicago, but the city has had several close calls over the years. It's only a matter of time before the next worst-case scenario occurs, and there's one big question on every meteorologist's mind. Is Chicago prepared?